All right, today I wanted to show you how to create a pre-market scan so that you can create a watch list to look for stocks that are going to be breaking out, stocks that are going to have really good chart patterns, stocks that can possibly make these big moves once the bell opens. And what I found is that the stocks that have a high percentage gain during the morning or overnight, and stocks that are trading on really high volume, those are the ones that are going to be in play for once the bell opens. So those are the stocks that you want to see. So how we do this is we create a scan to search for all the stocks out of the entire market that fit certain criteria. And the criteria that we want to look for is stocks that are gapping up, they have high volume, and stocks that have a low float. Because the lower the float, the less supply that stock has. And the less supply that it has, the more demand it could have if big news is surrounding that stock. So let's say, for example, a penny stock that was worth $3 somehow cured cancer and there's only 100,000 shares available to be traded. Well, lots of people are going to want a piece of that stock that have just cured cancer. So the demand will be really high, and that's the type of stock that is going to make 100%, 200%, 300% gains in one day. So that's what we want to be searching for. Now, I use trade ideas for all my scanning tools. You can do this with any other scanning tool that is out there. They should have the same criteria and the same settings that you can program your scanner to look for. But I highly recommend trade ideas if you don't use them, but it's still going to be the same thing no matter what scanner you use. So what we're going to do is come up to our window here that Trade Ideas gives you and click on New, and then click Top List Window. This little configuration window is going to come up. First thing I like to do is click on exchanges, so this exchanges tab right here, and just make sure that these 4 exchanges are checkmarked, because these are the stocks that you want to be trading, the stocks that are listed on these 4 main exchanges. You don't want to be trading pink sheets, you don't want to be trading OTC stocks. Those don't really make good moves. All the ones that are going to make good moves and provide that liquidity is going to be these 4 right here. So make sure those are checked. Next thing is I'm going to come up to Windows Specific Filters, click that tab. So we want to be trading stocks that have high volume. When a stock has high volume, that means lots of traders are interested in that stock. And when a stock has the interest of other traders, that means something is going on with that stock. It's either a really good technical pattern that's forming, or there's some type of news surrounding that stock that's getting people interested. The more eyes that we have on a particular stock, the more likely that chart patterns are going to actually follow through. And another good thing about trading stocks with high volume is that it's very easy to get your orders filled. So if you want to use a limit order to get filled at a certain price, it's more likely that you're going to get filled your whole order at that price. So we want to be trading stocks with high volume. Now, pre-market, there's not that much volume going on. So ideally, I want the stock to be trading with a minimum of 100,000 shares. So I'm going to type in 100,000 shares on the volume today as the minimum. You see these 2 columns, minimum and max. So I don't want to even look at a stock that's not trading on over 100,000 shares of volume. If it's trading under, then that means not many traders are interested in it. We're going to change the price to look for stocks between $1 and I like to do $10. You can do this whatever you like, but anything over $10, it can get, 1, a little pricey if you have a small account, and number 2, I don't really see many big moves happen on stocks that are over $10. Now, every once in a while, you can get a stock that's priced at, $15 or $20 that go up to $40, but it really depends on the float. but normally almost every single trade I take, it's a stock that is below $10. And I like to trade with a certain amount of money, so I like to do it between 1 and 10. You can change this to whatever you want. You can change that to 15 or 20 or 100 if you want to. But what I found works best is a maximum of 10. Next thing is we're not going to worry about the average daily volume, because a stock could have zero volume for a month, and then all of a sudden it comes out with big news, and then all of a sudden it just gets a bunch of volume. So we want to leave that blank. Next thing is we want to change the percentage from the close. So what this means is we're going to be looking for stocks that have opened the next morning in pre-market much higher than where they closed at on the previous day. So if a stock closed at $1 yesterday and the following morning it's now trading at $2, well, it just made a 100% move during that evening and throughout that morning. Something has got the attention of traders to really buy that stock up. So that means that there's some type of big news associated with it. Now, the news isn't really necessarily important. This is why notice that there's no news filter. You don't want to just look for stocks that are just trading on news, because the news itself doesn't really matter. What matters is the volume and the percentage that it has gained during the trading session. Because if the stock is rising a big percentage up and there's lots of volume, something's going on. That's something that you want to look into because you may be interested. So the minimum amount I use for this is 5%. Anything that's gapping up less than that, I don't really pay attention to. So I use 5% for that input. The next thing I look for is float. So we don't have float on here, so what we're going to do is come to more and then choose all filters on the category, and then we can just type in float and then click float, add filter, and the maximum. So we don't want to trade stocks with a high float, because that means that the stock will have a high supply. And when there's too much supply and not enough demand, there's not going to be very much movement. But when there's very little supply and a lot of demand, then there's going to be a ton of movement. So that's basically what float is. It's the supply. So when we have a small supply and we couple that with a high demand, which is the volume and the big percentage movement up, that's really going to skyrocket that stock. So the maximum float that I suggest is 20 million. Some people do 10 million, some people do 15 million. I think anything really above 25 million, then that's going to be a little more heavy on the supply side. And although I've seen stocks make great moves with 50 million share floats, the majority of the big moves come from stocks that have a float of 20 million or less. So I recommend doing 20 million on that. So that's really the only criteria that you need to look for during pre-market to create a watch list. So you're just going to click OK, and then it'll have a summary right here. So I'm searching for stocks between $1 and $10. I'm searching for stocks that have at least 100,000 shares. I'm searching for stocks that are up at least 5% from the previous close, and I'm searching for stocks that have a value of the float no more than 20 million. So every stock that hits all 4 of these criterias, it's going to show up. So I click OK, and this will give me my list. Now right now I'm making this video 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so the bell has been open for quite a few hours. So let me just show you a pre-market scan that I had this morning. Now this is a scan that I had exactly at 9:30 a.m. That's when the bell opens for me. I'm on the East Coast of the United States, so 9:30, and this right here is basically my watch list. So I have about, I don't know, 10 12 stocks in through here, this narrows down all the stocks that I should be looking for during pre-market. Instead of searching for thousands and thousands of stocks, looking to figure out what to trade, I narrowed it down to about 12. Now, what I can do, let me add a chart here. I'm going to add a chart. We'll make this the 1 minute chart. Now, what I can do is filter all these stocks by looking at certain chart patterns. So I can narrow my list even further. I can say, okay, what does ATOS look like? What does that chart pattern look like? Does it look good? Is it something I want to trade? What does HJLI look like? Does it look good? Is it something I want to trade? This orange is all pre-market, so we'll just look at all the pre-market data. So, you know, the pre-market, it's nice uptrending, lots of volume. It's gapped up 43% from the close. So yesterday it closed down here. Now it's around, you know, up here at 317. So 43% gap. The float is 740,000 shares. That's a really low float. So this has potential to make big moves. Now, we don't want to trade just because of it's hitting this criteria, just because it's up 43%, it's trading on 1.2 million shares of volume, and it has a really low float. That doesn't mean that it's going to be a big runner for the day. You want to trade based on what the charts look like. So if the charts don't signal a buy opportunity, then do not buy the stock. We want to trade solely based on the charts. These scanners just give us an idea of what stocks that will produce those A quality patterns. If the pattern isn't there, then we're not going to trade it. But this is going to kind of narrow down what to look for. And usually every morning when I come to my trading computer, this is the very first thing I look at. There's usually only about, you know, maybe 10 stocks on here. And out of those 10 stocks, I'm only looking at about 2 or 3. So my full attention is on these 2 or 3 stocks. And depending on what those chart patterns do, I'm going to trade it or not. So that is how you create a pre-market scan to kind of build a watch list for the trades that you may be able to take during the day. I hope you all learned something. Thank you so much for watching.